Okay, so this is a brand new segment called Paddle of the Week. Every week, I'm going to go through all the paddles I've played, break down how they felt, how they performed, and whether they actually helped me play well or if I just played like trash. Because let's be real, sometimes it's not the paddle, it's me, right? But at the end of each episode, I have to declare one as my Paddle of the Week. There are no conditions for what paddles make the cut. It could be a brand new unreleased paddle, or it could be something that's been out for 6 months, or even a year. If it stood out to me that week, it gets the spot. And if you have a paddle you want to see in Paddle of the Week, drop it in the comments and I'll see if I have it or if I can get my hands on it. In no particular order, and first up is the Honolulu Pickleball J2K Plus. This 16mm paddle started out stiff, muted, and not very reactive when I first got it about a month ago. Out of the box, there wasn't much power and it felt like I had to put a lot of effort in to get the ball to move. Fast forward many hours of playtime and it's breaking in and evolving into a completely different and very fun paddle. The power profile has increased significantly. It reminds me of the Pickleball Apes Pulse V, a paddle that started off feeling stiff but came alive after some games. The J2K Plus is experiencing that same transformation. Now, when I accelerate through my shots, the paddle gives back a little extra, and the response feels much livelier with a ton of dwell time, just like the Pulse V. The sweet spot is pretty big, and the power profile is not linear anymore. If I put in 50% effort, the ball comes off with 60% power. But note that those numbers are arbitrary for example purposes to make a point. To be clear, the paddle delivers linear power, but after it evolves, the power profile goes non-linear in my opinion. The paddle hasn't transformed into something uncontrollable, but reportedly, the power profile is supposed to evolve to a point where it might become harder to control. Spin generation is also excellent, and the paddle now feels more balanced. Good power, good pop, good spin, and still good control. But a control paddle, this paddle is not. When I first tested it, the swing weight was in the 49th percentile, twist weight was in the 93rd percentile, serve speed was in the 62nd, and punch volleys were in the 31st. But I suspect those numbers are up now, so I'll need to rerun them. I'll keep tracking how much further this paddle evolves, but right now, I really like where it's at. Okay, next up is the Mozi Pickleball Stinger. With a name like Stinger, I was expecting something fast, aggressive, and loaded with pop. Instead, I got a soft, ultra-controlled paddle that plays completely differently from what I expected. I need to stop reading into the names of things. There's been quite a few paddles recently with names that misled me, and it just throws me off when I start playing with something named Stinger and expecting some heat. Anyway, the first thing I noticed was the blocky handle shape. It's not necessarily a deal breaker, but I didn't like it, and it takes some getting used to. The stock grip is terrible. It's slippery, uncomfortable, it's just not good. Fortunately, those things are somewhat superficial and can be addressed with an overgrip, which is a must. Out of the box, drives with the Stinger felt soft, and I wasn't getting the solid punch I wanted on my shots. Again, based on the name, I expected some more pop and power that I did not get, so my expectations were already tuned one way. But on the flip side, drops and dinks were on point, with plenty of control and touch. The power profile of this paddle reminds me of the Reload paddle, softer and more controlled. I think adding weight to this paddle is a must, as it just feels too light to offer any power. After adding weight to the 3 and 9 o'clock positions, the paddle felt more stable and substantial, giving me better power on drives and still kept that soft, controlled feel on resets, drops, and dinks. The swing weight of the Stinger is in the 33rd percentile, and the twist weight is only in the 12th percentile, which explains why it felt unstable at first. After tweaking it, it played significantly better. Will I play it some more? Probably, yes, with additional weight on the head for plow-through. And I'm hoping it stands out more to me than it did stock. Next up is the Diadem Icon Infinity Max. This 13.7mm paddle is my first time playing an edgeless standard shape, and I was expecting some instability, but surprisingly, it's very stable. The paddle profile is all court, meaning it's not a full power paddle, nor is it a control paddle, but it can deliver pop when you need it. It was fun to play. The downside, the spin is disappointing. It's sitting in the 20th percentile, and I think that's likely because the grit is spray-on. But you can still hit good top spin with this paddle. It's just not top tier. The swing weight is in the 38th percentile, and the twist weight is in the 94th percentile, which is insane. Again, it's edgeless. Some players commented on how heavy it feels to swing. I don't feel that way personally, but I need more games on it before making a final assessment. Next up is the new and coming soon Thrive Smoke. This one just arrived, and I don't have much time on it yet. This is a 14.5 millimeter paddle that absolutely smacks. I guess we already have a 13.7 millimeter and a 14.3 millimeter, so why not a 14.5 millimeter? Is this the first 14.5 millimeter paddle? I'm not sure. Personally, I like the experimentation here. Anyway, I have 6 games on this paddle, and I can say that it's got a solid, lively feel at impact, and the ball jumps off the face with plenty of power. Thrive is marketing something called macro-charged polypropylene performance core. It's a mouthful. With enlarged honeycomb cells, which they claim should optimize power transfer and responsiveness. I'm reaching out to the founder to get more details on what that marketing phrase actually means, but from what I can tell so far, this paddle definitely delivers in the power department, and it is responsive. Like I said, this thing smacks. And while I need more time with it, I think the power profile is linear, which makes power shots and punches a little more predictable. The face combines carbon fiber and fiberglass, layered in what Thrive calls a 5-layer layup pattern. This might be the first paddle I've played with 5 surface layers. Whatever they're doing with that construction, it results in a paddle that feels rigid, crisp, and explosive. It also has thermoform injected walls, which should help with durability and keep the paddle performing consistently over time. Out of the box, the paddle weighed 7.94 ounces with a swing weight of 119.26 and a twist weight of 6.14. That swing weight is a bit on the higher end for what I would have liked, and I can't help but wonder what their Azul shape might have played like with a lower swing weight and higher twist weight in this model. But I found that adding a few grams of tungsten at the 3 and 9 o'clock positions made a noticeable difference, giving it more stability and a more dialed-in feel on off-center shots. It needs weight on the sides for stability because the twist weight is just so low. And more testing is needed, but so far, this paddle is playing exactly how I would hoped. Fast, powerful, and stable with that modification. I definitely will have more to share about this paddle in some upcoming quick takes. Next, I played with the Honolulu Pickleball J2K Pro. It is a 16 millimeter paddle that plays noticeably stiffer than the J2K standard, as most of the Honolulu Pickleball paddles with a Pro moniker do. If you're looking for the raw power of the J2K Plus, this isn't it, but it is a step up in power from the J2K proper. If you prioritize control, controllable punch, and consistent response, this paddle delivers. What stands out immediately is how solid and vibration-free the paddle feels on contact. There's no unwanted feedback, no hollowness, just a crisp, predictable, and consistent response that makes placement feel effortless. The power profile is completely linear, meaning the paddle gives back exactly what you put into it. There's no extra pop hiding in the core, but it still generates enough power to put balls away when needed. For me, the extra long handle is the one downside. There are plenty of you out there that will be happy with this 6-inch handle. I personally prefer a shorter handle length, but for players with a two-handed backhand, or those who like the extra reach, this could be a great fit. If you want a paddle that feels stable, controlled, and incredibly consistent, the J2K Pro does that very well. All right, next up is the upcoming Pickleball Apes Pulse X. This is a 16 millimeter paddle, and while I don't have enough games on it yet to give a full breakdown, nor do I have the paddle's metrics, I think it plays a bit softer than previous Pulse paddles. It's not as soft as the Reload, but it's definitely more control leaning than I expected. Then again, with the all-court leaning power and power paddles I've been playing this week, my calibration could just be off. But that's the story the numbers, which I have yet to run on this paddle, will tell. Right now, it feels smooth, consistent, and easy to play shots with, maybe closer to the J2XK Pro, but I'm still trying to figure it out. What I'm really curious about is whether the power profile will evolve like it did with the Pulse V and Pulse S, or like the J2K Plus. That's the million-dollar question, and I think what all of you are probably wondering. We'll see. Those paddles started off feeling a little muted, a little stiff, but became noticeably livelier after some games. If the Pulse X follows that same pattern, it could end up being a really well-balanced, all-court, possibly power-leaning paddle. But it's not right now. Okay, next up is the Rev Pickleball Zeus. Man, I've played a lot of paddles this week. This one is 14 millimeters, and it delivers power with a solid, stiffer, maybe denser, and yet stable feel. Unlike some paddles in the power category that have a springy, almost unpredictable pop, the Zeus plays with a linear power profile, meaning it gives you back exactly what you put in, so you don't have to guess or think as hard when you're playing. If you swing fast, you get a predictable speed in return, but it doesn't have that extra trampoline effect that some of the power paddles do. Right away, I noticed how dense and solid this paddle feels compared to something like the Franklin C45 or the Standout CF4. The ball comes off the face with a nice, sharp response, but it never feels too bouncy or hard to control. The sweet spot and stability are respectable for a 14 millimeter build. And while it's not the most forgiving paddle, it's also not an unforgiving paddle, and it still holds up well on counters and firefights. In terms of performance, the swing weight is in the 28th percentile, twist weight is in the 40th, serve speed is in the 62nd, and punch volleys are in the 82nd. Those numbers make sense because this paddle feels well balanced, fast in the hand, and has some punch. If you're looking for a stable, well-balanced power paddle with a more traditional feel, the Zeus is a solid option. It doesn't do anything crazy or gimmicky, it just delivers consistent power with a crisp, controlled response. It should be back in stock in March. Next is the Franklin C45. This is a 14 millimeter power hybrid thermoform paddle, and right now, it's my overall main. It's lightweight, fast, and loaded with pop, making it a great fit if you want an aggressive edge. Franklin designed this paddle with a dual thermoforming process, a 3-layer carbon fiber face, and precision foam channels milled with a CNC machine to enhance stability and improve playability. Out of the box, it felt too light and lacked stability, which made it tough and not fun to play. But once I added weight, specifically 2 to 3 grams on each of the 4 corners, the paddle completely transformed. It became more stable, the sweet spot felt larger, the power profile opened up, and overall, it played very, very well. All right, moving on to the UnMARKeD Pickleball UnMARKeD. Now, everything I'm going to say is based on 4 or 5 games with it this week. That's not much, and I can't share performance numbers or other data points at this point, but what I can share are anecdotes. This is a 16 millimeter paddle that straight up I did not love in stock form, and I tried and tried and I tried. It or I struggled with stability and twisting. Out of the box, it just felt okay, and it feels like an all-court paddle to me. So I decided to experiment with some weight adjustments. I added 10 inches of magnetic tape up the sides, which comes out to about 3.1 grams per 6 inches from the grip up. And with that simple tweak, the paddle's feel changed for the better. It felt way more stable, more controlled, and the sweet spot noticeably expanded. It has an improved feel, and it played much more solid, stable, and in my opinion, with better control. I need more time with this paddle on the court with it to really pin down if I can get there with this paddle. Right now, I describe it as unique, but not in a way that makes me want to main it. Okay, now we are moving on to the Vatic Pro Saga Bloom. 16 millimeter. This paddle is available to purchase now, and so far it plays super solid. It has a standard shape, which I like, but personally, I still prefer the hybrid Saga Flash. Look, they're both excellent paddles, but I prefer the hybrid. That being said, if you're into standard shapes, this paddle brings a lot to the table. On paper, the performance numbers are strong across the board. The swing weight sits in the 72nd percentile, twist weight is in the 53rd, serve speed is in the 62nd, and punch volleys are in the 83rd. And spin, pretty good as well at the 50th percentile. Those are really good numbers, and the paddle plays exactly like you'd expect based on them. Overall, the Saga Bloom 16mm is a very stable paddle with a great size sweet spot and solid power. If you're looking for a standard shaped paddle that plays fast and still packs a punch, this is definitely one to keep an eye on. Okay, finally, we're moving on to the paddle of the week. Right now, the Standout Pickleball CF4 takes the top spot as my paddle of the week. This is a 16mm paddle, and I need to correct something I said in a previous video. I originally labeled this as a hybrid shape, but after measuring it, it's definitely an elongated shape. But it's close, and I think it looks cool and plays very, very well, no matter what shape it is. What makes this paddle stand out, see what I did there, is how well it blends power, stability, and control. Some paddles that advertise power can feel too springy or hard to control, but that's not the case here. To be clear, it's not like it's easy to control, but it's not hard to control either, if that makes sense. But the non-linear power profile takes some getting used to, meaning the harder you swing, the more power it gives you back, making it great for putaways and baseline drives. It's fun. But even with that power profile, it is still controllable, or rather it doesn't feel uncontrollable, while still offering good power and pop. The sweet spot is above average in my opinion, and forgiving. Okay, about as forgiving as a non-linear power profile paddle can offer. Look, it takes some time to dial in, like the C45, but the paddle still feels stable on off-center shots, and it has a denser, springier feel on contact compared to the hollower feel of the C45. Some elongated paddles can feel a little head-heavy or sluggish, but the CF4 feels, well, distributed, quick in the hands, and stable at impact. Whether I was countering, blocking, or attacking, the paddle always felt consistent to me. So this paddle just checked all the boxes for me this week. Good power, good control, and good stability, and an interesting non-linear feel. But as always, I'll keep testing, and we'll see if it holds on to the Paddle of the Week title next time. So that's it. This is the Paddle of the Week. Let me know in the comments which paddle caught your attention, or what paddle you'd like me to take a look at next. If you're looking to pick up any of the paddles I mentioned today, you can use my code MPB to save some money on your purchase. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please hit that like button, subscribe for more content like this one, and I'll see you guys in the next one.